Hey, thanks for coming. My name is Dan Bamba. I'm the Marketing and Community Engagement Manager here at Flushing Town Hall. This is going to be our second uh, artist professional development conversation. It's Fundraising 101. So I know I've been saying it with everyone coming in, trickling in, but just make sure that your chat is set to send to all panelists and attendees so we can all see any of your comments throughout the session. And there's another feature for Q&A. Any questions that you guys have during the session, please submit them there. We'll be collecting them throughout the night. And at the end of the session, we'll have a nice Q&A section to go over all the questions that you have. My name again is Dan Bamba. I just when it's applicable, we'll be doing verbal descriptions of what you're seeing. So I am an Asian American man with short brown hair and wearing a white shirt. My preferred pronouns are he, him, his. And it's with great pleasure that I introduce our development team here at Flushing Town Hall, Jessica Peña, our Director of Development, and Jay House, our Grants Manager. So we'll start with you, Jessica, if you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm so excited that you're tuning in. Thank you so much for joining us. Like Dan said, my name is Jessica Peña, and I am the Director of Development at Flushing Town Hall. The pronouns that I identify with are she, her, and hers. I am a Caucasian woman in her 30s. I have long brown hair, and tonight I am wearing a black blouse with a high neck and a bow around my neck. Let's see, I grew up on Long Island, New York, and I went to school in Florida at the University of Miami for performance. After college, I realized that I didn't want to pursue acting professionally, so I very quickly pivoted into the arts nonprofit world. I knew I wanted to stay in the arts. So I've worked at Roundabout Theater in New York, and then I went on to Los Angeles to work at Center Theater Group at the Music Center there. And then after that, Opera Colorado in Denver, Colorado. And then I kind of made my way home to New York and joined the team here last January. So I've been with Flushing Town Hall for almost a year. Most of it has been during the pandemic, so that's been a wild ride. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here, and I will toss it over to Jay.
Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, Dan. Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be here too. My name is Jay House. I'm the Grants Manager at Flushing Town Hall. I am a Caucasian woman in her 40s. I have short brown hair, black glasses, and I'm wearing a dark purple sweater jacket over a kind of abstract ethnic black and white top. And I have a necklace that I wear all the time that has a big black pendant on it, which I got at the Flushing Town Hall gift shop, by the way. So I have been working in the nonprofit arts for about 20 years. I worked for 15 years on the program side. So I kind of joke, I was spending the money, now I'm earning the money. About 5 years ago, I shifted into fundraising. My first fundraising job was, in fact, really my first long-term one was with Flushing Town Hall. And I have had an amazing experience becoming a grant writer, getting to use writing skills in a way that that fits my passion for the arts. I was raised as an avid arts appreciator with family that appreciated and patronized all the disciplines, theater and classical music and visual arts and sculpting and craft. So it was always really important to me. So I'm excited to be here to share what I've learned.
Yeah, so this is Fundraising for Individual Artists 101. It's going to be an overview about best practices, how to cultivate that network, and really how to work with people you do know and don't know to possibly get support for your art practice. So to begin, I'll kick it off to Jessica, and we'll start with just what is philanthropy?
Great. So before we can hopefully give you some tools, some real action steps that you can leave with, we just wanted to start off with an overview of philanthropy, kind of get behind the philosophy of it and leave a little bit more confident about the art of asking for money. So philanthropy is really the concern for human welfare. So if you have empathy, you're philanthropic. You know, when we put it into action, that's when we start actually raising money, but it literally means the love of people. So it's just helping people, helping the world be a better place. Philanthropy started probably at the beginning of humankind, but some of the earliest proof that we have is back in ancient Greece. I like this reference. Plato, when he was putting together his school to teach all of his philosophies, actually set up an endowment, which is a word we still use today and we still have today, where people in his social circle were signing up to give money to make sure that this school, this building, would be along after they had passed away. So we know that for as long as people have been around, philanthropy has been a thing. And then something else about philanthropy that I think sometimes people forget is that it's not a one-way street. It's not just those that have money giving to those that need the money. It's very much a two-way interaction. The people that are giving away money, whether it's a person or an organization, they're filling a need too by giving away that money. So I just think it's really important to remember for those of us that are asking for money that we're also filling a need of the other person or the other organization. So that kind of leads me to talk about all the reasons that people end up donating. And you'll hear me say this, and you'll probably hear Jay say this, that you know, people give to people. So whether you're asking one person for money or an organization for money or a local business for money, you're asking a human being for money. And there are all these needs that that person has, which lends to why they're giving away the money. So people give to give back, right? Like it makes you feel good. You think you're going to have better karma. At the end of the day, you can sleep better at night. It just feels really good to give. You know, it's fun to buy presents for people and just to give. That's one of the big reasons people give, is because at the end of the day, it makes them feel good. Another reason is a personal connection or passion. And this can mean two different things. This can be a way to kind of build up and round out your life. So someone that perhaps doesn't work in the arts, but has that side of them, they give so that they have that connection to the arts. And that's just an example. But there's also just, if you're tied to something, say from your childhood or from your university, that you've always kind of had a connection to, you might just always keep giving back to that personal connection. Let's say you used to go to a certain museum, you know, with one of your parents when you were little. Perhaps you just always are going to want to give back to that museum. Another reason people give is professional advancement or development. So this can mean, again, two things. One way that is going to surface is with nonprofits to serve on a board, you know, so that, you know, it looks really good on your resume, you're meeting people, you're mingling, great for business, but it also is a way to socialize. So some people end up wanting to be a donor so that they can have a social life or meet other like-minded people. So it's definitely a good reason to give, is if you're looking for a social network. There's also the peer pressure aspect of why people give, which is exactly as it sounds. You know, my friend gave, so I should give. My mom gave, so I should give. When a network of people start giving, it can have a domino effect, which you can really use to your benefit. There's also business reasons that people give, whether it's sponsorships where there can be ads for their business, or again, that kind of speaks back to the peer pressure. If all the stores around them are giving, maybe they're going to feel like they should give too. Of course, there's the urgent need. So we're seeing that right now during COVID. You see that when there are hurricanes or natural disaster, when there is something in your face as a human that you can't ignore and it's out of the ordinary and it's devastating, that's going to be an urgent need to give. A lot of times those gifts end up being one-time gifts, meaning it's not really a membership or where they're going to be tied to that every year, but let's say they go on and give to the Red Cross because there's been a disaster. And then finally, there's a tax benefit in giving if you're giving to a nonprofit organization. And just really quick overview of what that means is that a nonprofit has signed up with the government of being nonprofit, meaning no individual is profiting from the funds that come in. We are serving the community. So all the money coming in is going back and investing into the community, which is actually something the government wants us to do. So because we're doing that good, we get a tax break, which means that donors that give to us also get a tax break on that money, lowering their bracket of taxable income. So for people that are very affluent, they oftentimes are meeting with their bankers and finance advisors to say, okay, you need to give away X amount of money this year to lower where you're going to sit in the bracket. And then they have the wonderful problem of deciding where to give. So that's pretty much the main reasons of why people donate. And that's all to say, there is a need. There's a need to donate. They have to give it somewhere. And just remember, as you're learning how to ask for money and where you can find money, that it's not you begging for money. It's a two-way street. So that being said, I'm going to throw it over to Jay, because before you can know where you're asking for money, you have to know what you're asking for money for and who you are. So Jay's going to talk a little bit about that.
Thanks, Jessica. So yeah, I'm going to talk about branding yourself as an artist, what that means for you as an individual. First, I want to say branding is really about the full experience that a person gets from interacting with you as an artist. It's not just a logo. A lot of people, I think brand just means that visual, but it's also the full meaning that you get, like the Nike brand shifted a little bit when they supported Colin Kaepernick. That said something about them. So the brand, that what you convey as your brand, it's essentially every interaction people have with you, and it is a way that you actually have an opportunity to communicate about yourself in a different way from the way your art is communicating. You're essentially communicating about the business of your art process along with the art itself. But it's really, it does come down to communication and knowing yourself, knowing what knowing your niche, or knowing who you might be similar to, knowing what themes you're dealing with. So this is, it sounds obvious, but you want to just make sure that you're clear on who you are and also who you're not. This is going to help you create a successful pitch. This is a successful pitch to that you would use when you're meeting with somebody. And this applies to fundraising. It also applies to marketing and to any kind of external facing communication. But when you're first talking to somebody about your project or your practice, what you want to do is have a succinct and concise statement. Really focus on using nouns and not adjectives. As a grant writer, I'm often in the role of needing to trim word count down, and have learned how simple it can be when you keep the language simple, when you skip over adjectives and just do sort of the facts. This is the who, what, why, when, and where, right? We've heard this before, and it's really true. In fundraising, the why is a little bit higher. I think typically you hear the when and the where first. If we're doing an event marketing, obviously those details are important, but the why is really important in communicating who your brand is, who you are, because you're in this world, in the arts and nonprofit in general, we're talking about a mission. There's a cause that's going on underneath just the fact that there's an exhibition happening. So when you're talking about your project, one of the things you want to do is speak to the interest, speak to those reasons that Jessica was referencing. With institutions, you're going to know, they're going to tell you a little more clearly what they're looking for, but with individuals, you're going to do that work of building the relationship yourself, but you really want to appeal to what's motivating them, and speak in a way that invites them into the process. We've all agreed it really often is a case of faking it till you make it. And the only way to do that really successfully is to practice. So a tangible thing that you can do is to create an elevator pitch. And this is essentially the idea that you meet someone in an elevator, you have 30 seconds or 20 floors worth of time to pitch them on your idea. So I want to actually offer an elevator pitch challenge. So anybody who's on the call and wants to take me up on this, if you write your elevator pitch, 30 seconds, 2 sentences max, I would say, practice it with an artist friend. And then you can actually call my voicemail. The phone number's on there. It's 718-463-7700, extension 244. And I will get back to you with feedback. But really, I want like a short, sweet bullet about who you are and why you matter, why you can target it to a specific project that you're doing or to you generally. But I want to emphasize that it's important to get outside feedback. So here's a case where I can be your outside feedback for this one time, but you can practice with a friend, another artist, and coach each other. I would definitely recommend doing that. Once you have that pitch down, you will be able to communicate from that place much more confidently, and then you can talk more about you can get into the adjective text where you're saying more detail about what you're working on. The last thing I want to mention in this section is that just remember that as you're thinking about your brand, you've got different channels where you're communicating. You've got written, you've got in person, you have social media. It's worth considering with social media, do you want to have a personal account that is separate, like that's your private life, separate from your art business account? You can think about how you're going to manage those things, but do think about it, because they all will affect how your brand is perceived and how you're perceived generally from the outside. And with that, I will mention that we do have a social media professional development session coming up. I think Dan will probably share that info with everyone when that is ready. And I'm going to pass it over to Dan now.
Yeah, so we're planning on doing it in December. We're just hammering out the details. We'll send you out all the information about it. But just to chime in, definitely take Jay up on that elevator pitch challenge. If you have that 30-second pitch, please, the number's over here. And again, outside feedback is really important. But with that all being said, we've talked about why people donate and how to best put your foot forward. But the real reason we're here is how to develop that network of support. So, Jessica, let's start with you, and how do you identify those sources of support and ultimately grow those relationships?
Yeah, so, it's a big can of worms, but we're going to jump in. You have to start at home, right? So, I'm not sure who's tuning in tonight, who's done this and who hasn't, but there's always a stone that you haven't overturned that you can. So I'm going to talk about individuals and just small businesses, because that's where you've got to start before you're ready, or at least at the same time that you're looking at, institutions and organizations, which Jay will touch on. You have to start at home. Not only is it good practice, but these are the people that know you and love you and will support you. And when I say home, I don't mean just literally your home. I mean your friends and your family. So what you want to do quite literally is map out people in your life. So you can be looking at kind of what I call your inner circle, which is the people that quite literally love you. So whether that's friends, best friends, mentors, people that would give you money now. If you called them and said, you know, I'm starting this page, I'm starting this program, and I need to start with some seed money, you need to have that inner circle that you can talk to passionately about your project or what you're doing. So outside of really good friends, family, mentors, you're going to look at old school classmates, make a list, and don't think anybody should be off the list. Just because you haven't talked to someone in 10 years doesn't mean that you can't, you know, write them a nice email and reconnect. You have to start with a large net when you're asking for money. So old classmates, old work connections, new work connections. There's something I call reach relationships. So make a list of places where you would love to, you know, become friends with the artistic director or with an artist at a gallery. Just make a list of reach relationships, because something I hope that you'll leave this conversation with is just the confidence and the energy to be reaching out to people that you haven't been, especially now during COVID. Now's the time to be rebuilding a foundation, reaching out to people. Hey, you know we haven't talked in 3 years, but I would absolutely love if I could pick your brain about something on Zoom. Do you have 30 minutes? Those are the sorts of things you have to be doing if you're not doing it. So yeah, just make that list of all the individuals. And then after you kind of have that list, you're going to start looking at ways that you can actually ask for money. So whether you're asking for money for kind of your overall business, meaning like, you know, let's just say you're a visual artist. So it's not like you have a particular project, but you need money to survive. You need money to pay the bills, money to get your work in this space or that space. Or if you have more of a project, which actually can help, and I think I'll talk about this later on, if you make shorter term goals with more specific projects, that's something that donors will really latch onto. It's very exciting, and you can be really specific and get them engaged about the details. So you can start a GoFundMe if you've never done that. It's super easy. You have every right to do it. You know, what you're doing is a business, so you cannot get intimidated or be scared to be asking people for money for what you do. You have to have, you know, passion and addiction around what you're doing. So GoFundMe, there's other crowdfunding sources that you can look into, but that's the one I'm partial to. Their percentages of money that they take are very low. Social media, be pushing stuff out on social media. So if you do have a GoFundMe, get it on all different platforms. You can be sending people emails. You know, one trick is BCCing, so blind copying, you know, however many people you want. Get a mass email out there, and then you can do follow-up emails with people specifically and say, oh, you should have seen my email. What's nice about BCC is you can also target people. Say you only want to send it to 2 people. They might think it's being sent to 100. So it's just a little tool that you can do that will help. Also pick up the phone. I think that in this day and age, we all forget, myself included, you know, that everyone's texting, everyone's emailing. Sometimes it's really nice to just hear someone's voice. If it's someone that you don't talk to normally, you might want to set up a phone conversation instead of just calling them out of the blue. But if you can get someone on the phone, I would highly suggest doing it. So those are avenues that you can use to ask individuals for money. And just remember that individuals are also parts of small businesses and corporations. So outside of the people in those networks, you're going to be looking at the places around you that you go to. So your hair salon, your local coffee shop. You know, if you go to Starbucks, maybe it's time to start going to a more mom and pop coffee shop so you can be showing them support so that you can ask them for support in return. When you are going to these small businesses, make sure that you're introducing yourself, that you're forming a relationship with these people, and that you're actually tracking the money that you're giving them. Because if you ever get to a point where it does make sense to be asking them for either money or goods that's going to help you out, you want to be able to say to them confidently, you know, I don't know if you know, but I spend a lot of money here. I actually spend about this much. And like, I would love if we could discuss some sort of a partnership where you could get back. Then there's the mob mentality with small businesses. So I think I mentioned this before, if there's a strip of businesses and 3 out of 4 are giving, that's going to give you a lot more leverage to get the 4th to give. Think of fun benefits. So whether it's you being creative, again, if you're a painter or dancer, maybe you're willing to do something for them if they're going to have a community event. Just think outside the box, be creative as you're fundraising. I think that fundraising in itself is an art. So have fun with it. You guys are all artists. Don't make it so serious. Be as creative as you can to offer people things in return. And then especially with small businesses and corporations, remember that donations aren't always just handing you money. If you need $1,000 for something, you can probably be creative enough to get $1,000 worth of goods from small businesses in your area to then take that money and pay for it yourself. So whether it's, like I said, haircuts, you can find a salon to give you a free haircut. Whether it's little coffee shops, you can find little cafes to give you gift cards or certificates. Art supplies stores, just be confident and think outside the box. It's a numbers game. If you ask for something from 100 places, then 6 of them are probably going to say yes. So that's all to say, you just have to be tenacious. You have to keep going. You have to ask for what you want and have confidence in doing it. And going back to what Jay said about the branding, know what you're asking for. You can't say to someone, can I please have $100 and just stop it at that? They're probably going to say no. But if you lay out, hey, I'm so-and-so, I do this really cool art and I'm looking for funding. So here's the breakdown. I need $100. Out of that $100, X is going to go to that, Y is going to go to that, Z is going to go to that. And it would be so awesome if you would invest in me. They're probably more apt to actually support you. So know what you're asking for. And then these are some simple tips in asking for money. Be confident. We just touched on that. Be yourself. That's something I learned really early on, actually, when I started off in a call room at Roundabout Theater. It was like the first time I'd ever asked for money. And I was listening to like another caller that I knew was really successful. And I remember trying to kind of mimic that person and it just wasn't working. And then, my mentor at the time was like, you have to be yourself. Like, if you're not being yourself and just using your own personality, you're never going to get people to give you money. So you have to be authentic when you're speaking to people, when you're writing, make sure you're in your voice and you find your own way to ask for money. Don't make assumptions about people. There might be people in your life or companies where you think, oh, there's no way that they're ever going to be able to give. That's not necessarily true. You cannot be negative when you're asking for money. You've got to be positive and optimistic and just always ask, always find out, because you just never know. Someone that you could think has absolutely no money might be sitting on a trust fund. You don't know. So do not make assumptions when you're fundraising. Make sure you listen, make sure you're being a friend. I reference this a lot, just be a friend to a funder. Do the things that you would want them to do for you, say happy birthday on their birthday. If you're supposed to get on the phone and talk to them about money and you can tell that they're just having a bad day, or you see on social media that they went through something kind of negative, maybe tell them, you know what, why don't we put it off a week? Listen and pick up, not just with your ears, but pick up on where someone's at in their life so that is this really the right time to be having this conversation? Always lead with a thank you. I really don't think people can say thank you enough. If someone's going to give you the opportunity to send a grant proposal or to sit down for coffee when we're able to do that again, or to get on Zoom, always, always, always thank them before you're even having a conversation or in an email. Thank you for taking this proposal. I really appreciate it. This is a big one. Form the ask as a statement and not a question. When you ask someone for money, and this is honestly just a trick that I've learned over the years, and it's actually proven in fundraising. If you ask someone, would you be able to give me $100? The answer is much more likely to be no than if you form it as a statement. Like, it would be so wonderful if you could give me $100. and then you just pause and you kind of live in that silence. It can be awkward. It gets less awkward with practice, you know? So if you are going to start asking people for money or for in-kind donations in person at businesses, really try that. Just practice it over and over. And I promise you it works. No doesn't always mean no, meaning someone could be having a bad day. They could be having a bad month or a bad year. They might just be saying no to that specific project, but another one really piques their interest. So make sure you know why they're saying no, and definitely go back for more. If you're asking for fiscal donations, it's good to have different levels and kind of aim high. So if someone says no to $5,000, go back with 2,500, go back for 1,000, go back for 500. These are just tricks that, you know, they do work. So once you find ways that you can be asking for people for money, keep these tricks in mind. And then finally, and I already said this, just have unique benefits, use your creativity, have a sense of humor. People react to that, you know. It doesn't have to be such a heavy thing asking people for money. It can be fun, it can be light, it can be funny. So just use your personality and have a sense of humor is probably my best advice when you're forming relationships in this sense. So yeah, those are some tips. Take them or leave them. I think a lot of them really do work. But now it's time to talk a little bit about more formalized giving, which we call in nonprofit institutional support. So I'm going to throw it over to Jay to talk about that.
Thanks, Jessica. So yes, I'm going to talk about institutional support, what it is and how it's relevant to solo artists. There's a way in which it's almost like bridging the small to the large, what is what we're talking about here. So first things first, I want to just say the elephant in the room, which is that most foundations don't give grants to individuals, and it has to do with the tax status that Jessica was talking about earlier. But I want to be clear that while there are some exceptions that I'll get into in a couple minutes, what you're doing here is building towards an infrastructure or a system where you may be writing grants one day, or one of the things that you may decide down the road is to form a nonprofit of your own, but you don't have to. And there are a lot of things you can be doing that are in that more formal kind of fundraising that don't require the administrative overhead of your own company. So again, as we've said, we're always cultivating relationships. So even in the institutional setting, you are still talking to people, and these are people often who are connected in some way to the art form that you're working on or to a cause. There's a lot of mission-driven mentality in this work. So I'm going to break down a few different kinds of institutions that you can be thinking about as an individual artist. First, I want to talk just a little bit about arts councils and other service organizations that are more geared towards supporting artists and the arts sector as a whole. They in some ways can function like professional development associations or trade associations for your field. Arts councils are they're organizations that are their sole mission really is to promote art in a very broad sense, usually in a geographic area. You'll see some resources that Dan will email you tomorrow that will include the local arts councils. I'm sure most of you know about them, but they are often, in fact, the exceptions that are making grants. They get re-grant money from the state or the city that they can then pass on to individuals. But more than that, they offer a lot of professional development, teaching, networking. Some of them, some of you on this call are teaching artists with Flushing Town Hall. So we are technically an arts council, and there are different there are a lot of different ways that you can connect with these organizations and you can get support that may lead to earned income, such as teaching artist work. I want to note too that there are a great number of organizations that are discipline specific, or they may be specific to a cultural background. It's really important to do the research to find the ones that are going to fit your specific niche. This kind of goes back to the branding, knowing who you are and looking for those cross sections. You really will may be surprised at how many cross sections you'll see of a niche with the arts. You can also look, and I encourage you to look for organizations that fit your work thematically. I once worked with an artist he was a solo artist and did theater pieces. One of his pieces had to do with war and peace, and he connected with the organization Veterans for Peace, which has nothing to do with the arts, but they were impressed with his work and invited him to participate in their conference. He did get paid a small amount for it, so it wasn't a huge money-making thing for him, but he connected with other organizations for touring and for future touring. He was able to connect on a more national scale. So that was an example of just partnering where there's a thematic connection outside of the arts. When you're connecting with these organizations, these are some obvious things to do, I think, but I want to make sure to say get on their email lists, follow them on social media. Frequently, I would say there can be a tremendous amount of activity coming out of these organizations and a lot of opportunities and to connect and to learn and network and develop relationships with the folks either that are working there or that you meet through them. So just don't hesitate to call them or email them with questions. It's a kind of an issue or a matter of being both responsive and proactive. Look to them for what they're offering, but also respond to the opportunities. And I would say also consider putting them on your email lists, even if the people that you meet aren't directly making funding decisions, or if they don't do any funding, you can still expand your network, which is going to help you in the long run. Like Jessica said, it's a numbers game. So the more people you're connected with, the more likely you're going to bring in the cash that you want. Another thing, just a specific tip for working with these kinds of organizations, if you do have some kind of a success that comes out of your association with them, let them know, both because it will help develop the relationship, but it also just from like the sort of friendly perspective, but also it helps them build their programs, which can lead to more support for the kind of work that you're doing down the road. It's really like it comes down to impact and synergy, and it's just a good habit to be in, to communicate back to them your successes. You're going to want to do that with foundations down the road anyway, and so it's a good practice to get into. Another category to be thinking about are organizations that are more where you're interacting with them more on a competitive way. They're the small foundations that do some granting to individuals. Examples like Puffin Foundation and Bostic Heilbronn are a couple that I think you'll see in the resources Dan shares, but there are fellowships, commissions, residencies, artist colonies, all kinds of opportunities for individual artists to apply for what are often highly competitive opportunities. I'm talking about the category that would include the MacArthur Genius Award. So some there's a range, some are very grassroots and some are at that level. I would say what what Jessica said earlier, but get on the phone or email, but reach out specifically with questions, especially if you're submitting an application of some kind. If there's a name of a person who's running that application process and you can call them or connect with them, definitely do it. Don't be afraid, because again, they're people, they're working in the arts, because at some level there's probably a mission that tugs at their heartstrings as well. And so they're generally pretty friendly people, I would say. One of the important things I wanted to mention in this section is looking at who these funders or award givers have given awards to in the past. You want to be looking at to see if there are artists that are like you, or and the important thing with this is that this should actually encourage you rather than discourage you. It's less about like the funding has now run out because that person who's like me got it. It's more like, oh, this is going to be a good match. This foundation, this award opportunity will be a good match for me because I'm similar to that artist. The other thing I want to say about this is just to remember rejection is inevitable and it's going to happen. And so when it happens, always ask for feedback, especially arts councils and some of these more service-oriented organizations. If they're doing the re-granting, they will want to give you feedback, but it's really can be a valuable thing to hear. You know, your application was competitive. It came down to, you made it to the last round, but your work samples weren't as strong as they should have been. And you probably know your work samples need to be better, but you hear it from that foundation, and then like, this is something that I have to work on. That's just one example. The other thing that can happen though with getting that feedback, doing those feedback calls, is that it just helps you develop the relationship. Sometimes it's simply a matter of your application was excellent, but there were already 50 applicants from New York City and they could only do 25 grants to New York City based artists. So for whatever reason, you didn't get one, but you might get one next year. I've had those phone calls myself for Flushing Town Hall where a funder said, it was perfect, we just didn't have enough money, don't change a thing, reapply next year. And we got the money, and it's an ongoing relationship. I think of it like leaving your calling card. Sometimes submitting that application is like you're introducing yourself to them this way, and you can take advantage of it that way. I want to mention something called fiscal sponsorship. This is part of the kind of interim between being a solo artist and having your own 501c3 company. Fiscal sponsorship is an arrangement where a nonprofit will sponsor an artist, an individual, to do a project under that organization's tax status. So you would be able to receive donations with that tax benefit to the donor. Some foundations won't accept these, but as you're doing that kind of research, they usually say pretty quickly that whether they do or they don't. Some organizations that offer fiscal sponsorship are the Field, Fractured Atlas, New York Foundation for the Arts. Those are three that I know. But the thing to keep in mind is you could ask any organization, any nonprofit, to serve as your fiscal sponsor if you have that kind of relationship with them. So it's another reason why you want to be looking around you and building that network. That would be a really powerful partnership to make. I want to just say a quick word about space grants. This is related to what Jessica was talking about, in-kind donations, but space grants are a very specific kind of in-kind, where you would be getting free use of the space in a theater or a gallery. Flushing Town Hall does something like this. We aren't doing it right now because of COVID, but as soon as we are able to open the building and have artists come back in, all of you should definitely check out that information on our website. But that can be a great opportunity, just especially in New York City, where space is such a premium. I want to talk just a moment about an underlying principle here is coming into these relationships with a partnership mindset. even though they are institutions you're talking to, you're still, as the artist, you're bringing something really valuable. You're the expert in your art or your project or your art form. You've been working at this for as long as you've been doing it, and you come in with all the professional credentials that any other professional would come in with. So partnerships can be really valuable. You can really leverage a partnership to go further together. And it's just important that you remember that you're an equal partner. And I want to just straight up say, if anyone asks you to give away your work for free because you'll get exposure, unless you feel like being charitable, I would say no. You don't have to do that. And we still hear about it a lot. And it's you can always say no to those requests.
It's always that bit about, hey, we can't pay you, but we'll give you exposure.
Right? Exactly. Right. Yeah, no thanks. Unless you're doing charity, which is totally your choice. If you want to do charity, I respect that completely. Another note about partnership and about how do you get all this stuff done? I would really strongly encourage you to, as part of your networking, be looking to connect with other artists who you can share skills with. Or it can also be non-artists who may just be interested in doing the kind of supporting this kind of work in a more hands-on way. But look for the kind of individual partnerships where you can trade skills and services for each other. That can benefit you a lot. And I want to close by talking about this concept of fit, which is something I think a lot about when I'm looking at what grants to recommend that we write at Flushing Town Hall. It's almost like online dating, and I do have an online dating example to illustrate, where once I was looking at a profile and saw that this person really liked Balkan music, and I love Balkan music, and I got right away got very excited, and to this day we are still friends. We live in different cities, but we are still friends. So there was something that was really present, and that is what I would call fit. Knowing that there's a connection to be made. So it goes back to knowing yourself. You have to know who you are, your brand, what other artists are similar to you, what are the venues that feel like they're where you belong. I think Jessica said about the reach goals, like even if it's somebody who's a much higher level, if there's an aesthetic that you resonate with, that's part of how you know yourself. So once you know that, you're also looking at those artists and those presenters, those venues that are getting funded, and you're looking at who's funding them. Everybody does this. You should be doing it too. Look at the programs, look at the websites. Everybody does it, and you have to do it. And you just put them on your list, and you research them, and you figure out if they feel like they're a good fit. Ways that you can do some of this research. A tool I use a lot is guidestar.org. It's part of the Foundation Center, and they've now merged together, and they are called Candid. But guidestar.org is still at that web address. You can set up a free account, and you can get the publicly available financial information about foundations and other nonprofits, and you can see who their trustees are. You can see who their staff is, what their giving guidelines are. It's a really useful tool. And I guess the last thing I want to leave you with for this section is that especially with institutional giving, the people who are giving, who you're calling the gatekeepers, so to speak, they are usually people who are charged with giving away somebody else's money. They're not necessarily making a personal decision. So your job is to connect with them and give them the information so they can give the money away in a way that they feel proud of. So this is where fit is really important, because when the fit is right, you're actually making their job easy. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jessica.
Great. So really quickly, there was a lot of information. I'm going to kind of tie up how do you organize all of this, right? How do you build an infrastructure to kind of keep yourself responsible for treating your business as a business? You can't just do these things when you feel like it. So number one thing is organize, organize, organize. Keep yourself motivated. Say once a week, I'm picking up the phone 3 times. On this day, I'm going to write 10 emails. On that day, I'm going to look for other gallery events that I can show up to. It's really important that you hold yourself responsible as you're developing these relationships and as you're just researching, where can I get money from? Just build yourself an infrastructure. So first, you're going to look at calendar and timelines. So if you can, and you do find grants that you can actually apply to, you're going to want to put those in the calendar. So mark out calendar deadlines for applications. And then if you do get money, make sure you're putting in when you should be checking in with that person. A lot of grants will actually have requirements in terms of reporting. So you'll put that in your calendar, but you'll also put touch points. So, you don't want to ignore a funder for 6 months and then just send them, the reporting requirements. You want to remind yourself and actually track, hey, check in with this person, share my my accomplishments with this person. Make yourself a social calendar. This whole art of fundraising and finding ways to get money, it's a very social profession. So make it an actual job to cultivate these relationships. Funder recognition is something, those are things you might come up with as you're building benefits with sponsorships, with local businesses. So make sure you're tracking, where should those funders get recognized? Should it be online? Should it be in a program on social media? I touched on the relationship cultivation. Make sure you're creating your own. Don't trust yourself if you think, oh, I'll remember. You're not going to remember. So actually build it into a calendar. Then you also have to track other things. So you're going to want to create a contact list with personal details. So just anyone you email with, anyone you meet, just write it down, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet, whatever, and keep details. If someone tells you that they can't get on the phone because their cat is sick, write down the detail that their cat is sick. They're going to appreciate that 2 weeks from now, when you do talk to them, you say, I hope your cat is feeling better. These are the things that should come naturally to us if we're being a good friend. But because your job becomes building relationships, you cannot possibly remember how to be a good friend to hundreds of people. So write it down, even if it feels funny. Track your income and of course, all of your expenses. I'm guessing a lot of you do that already, but if you don't, absolutely track where money is coming in and what money is going out. A lot is going to be tax deductible that you're in your life. So if you're not already tracking things like that, you should. Your gas can be tax deductible if you're going to meetings. Your meals, your haircuts, your Zoom, there's tons of stuff that you're doing for your business. So track. And that touches on basic accounting. If you ever need help with that, there's tons of resources for people online that are willing to help at nonprofits. So absolutely reach out. A lot of your friends that maybe aren't artists are probably willing to help. Just, lean on people, ask for help, be positive, and don't make assumptions. That's pretty much it with building a fundraising infrastructure, is just write down more than you think you need to write down, because you're never going to remember what you think you're going to remember.
And you never know, those little details, like you said, like sick cat, might kind of put you over the edge. It's like, hey, this is a person. This isn't just someone hitting me up for money. It's all about cultivating those relationships, and those little things do matter.
Yeah.
I want to just jump in to add that I started my career in the arts because I was helping a friend with a theater project. I went to her show and there was such a small audience, and I said, I think I could help you. And then it ended up becoming my career. So what Jessica's saying is totally right. And she's still doing her art.
So yeah.
And show up for other people. So, as a reminder, fundraising, you have to be tenacious. So I'll describe this slide because it's one of my favorites. It's a little goldfish underwater, and on top of the goldfish, on top of the water, all you see is a shark fin. So, to everybody else looking at the water, they see a shark fin, but underneath is this scared little goldfish that isn't very sure of what he's doing. So this is something I like to remind myself, to be brave, even if you're not, pretend to be. You're gonna get a lot more yeses if you kind of have your chin up and just go out there confidently. And again, have confidence in what you're asking money for, because you do. All of you, obviously, if you've devoted your life to your art, then you believe in it. So other people are going to believe in it too, as long as you do. And then, I have to practice what I preach. You have to ask for money. So, Flushing Town Hall, if any of you can support us, absolutely, I encourage you to. And I can only work somewhere where I believe in what we're doing. And I believe in our mission, to provide global arts, to help artists, to make Queens and New York City a better place to be. So we're still trying to do it. It's hard from home. We miss our community. We miss seeing you, but if you can donate, you never know, and money adds up really fast. So don't think you have to give a ton of money to help us, because if everyone gave a little bit, it sounds cheesy, but it really would add up, and it's a lifeline right now is the funders. So that's my plug. And yeah, thank you.
Right? So yeah, thank you, Jessica and Jay. We've had some great questions. If you have any more questions, please throw them over to the into the Q&A. I'll hit a couple of them that we can do really quickly. Patricia, in terms of, do we give grants to artists? Currently, we don't have any cash grants, but like Jay mentioned, we do offer space grant when our space is open. I included in the chat a link to the space grant, but if you just Google Flushing Town Hall space grant, you can see a little bit about that and what is offered through it. And
I just want to add one thing to that. We also, and I know there's a couple of you, like Jay said, tuning in, that are teaching artists. So we also do offer employment to artists, and you never know when we're going to need a different type of artist. So our team from the top down are really accessible. So, if you have something you think you can offer, if you have an idea, reach out to us, because, Flushing Town Hall is very much into supporting artists however we can and trying to work together. So,
and if you haven't already, follow us on social media and sign up for our email list. We send out emails every week for what's coming up, but any opportunities that are coming down the pipe from us that we can possibly work together with, that's the best way to kind of keep up to date on what we offer. And I want to touch on, in terms of fiscal sponsors, we could do a whole section on fiscal sponsorship. I will be sending over tomorrow a list of resources. And
I can say a little bit more on that if we want. I mean, we are at time, so I don't know how long we're going, but sure, I'm happy to take some more time. I don't know.
It's just talk more about fiscal sponsorship is a little bit vague. So
I mean, here's what I know generally. I worked at the Field for a couple of years, and the Field does it for performing artists. I don't, so Fractured Atlas would be one to look at if you're a visual artist, which I think you are, Tecumseh. But you can also inquire with New York Foundation for the Arts. They may curate. The Field does not curate, so anyone who's a performing artist can be a fiscally sponsored artist. Fractured Atlas is all disciplines, and I believe they also do not curate. So generally there's some kind of annual fee. It might be a membership fee to access benefits for that organization. They have different structures. They will also take a percentage of your income. Those are going to differ from place to place. So I would recommend looking at those structures, even at the field, if it's not the right one for you, just look at how they structure it, because you could also, as I said, go to a nonprofit, an existing nonprofit, and ask them to sponsor you in that way. And if you come with a proposal where you know what you're asking for, you know how fiscal sponsorship works, you know what the limits are, you might be able to get someone to do it for you. And I mean, one thing I knew about the field is that when an artist was writing a grant, the staff of the field would review that grant, because they were not going to have something going out under their name that they didn't at least proofread and make sure it was, was compliant with the guidelines or the mission of the field. So those are the kinds of things, if you were pitching an independent nonprofit to do it for you, you could offer that you would let them review your work and work out the details of that. But it's definitely a great interim step, because having your own nonprofit is a lot of work. And I'm happy to take, if there's more specific questions that anyone wants to email about anything I covered, I'm happy to have them and to share the answers out to the whole group.
Yeah, and again, I'll be sending over like a list of resources. There are really interesting other organizations kind of encapsulate fiscal sponsorship pretty well. So I'll be sure to flag that in the document
Cool.
also. Charisse asks, how should we think about fundraising with the pandemic and budgets potentially tightening?
So I'll take that one really quick. This kind of goes back to my points on not making assumptions. So yeah, budgets are getting cut, but there's still a lot of money out there. So you have to remember that in these times, the funders, the people that have money, still have a lot of money, and they really want to help. It could actually even benefit you in some ways. Flushing Town Hall has gotten, some emergency funding from grants that maybe the money wasn't there before because of the dire need. So, now is absolutely the time to be asking for money, because when it's the donors and the organizations that have the passion and that want to help, they're doing everything they can to get funds out the door right now and helping. And that goes for individuals too, in your circles and all the stuff I started talking about, the GoFundMes. Now is the time that people with any expendable money, they want to help. And again, the worst thing that can happen, as long as you're leading with a thank you and you're being gracious, is people and organizations say no. But in my opinion, it never hurts to ask, to open that conversation. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would say about the pandemic is, yes, keep it in mind, but no, there's still money out there and there's people that really want to help.
And there are a lot of organizations now, and we just got money from the Mid-Atlantic Arts Foundation specifically as a disaster relief fund. And I know NIFA was doing that. I don't know if it's if they were able to replenish that fund, but there are emergency funds specifically for individual artists. But
Artist Relief is one. They just closed a deadline, but I think they might reopen for another round. artistrelief.org. Just people might want to check that out.
Yeah, and again, I think the biggest thing to take away from this is there's no harm in asking, as long as you're going about it the right way, coming from a solid spot of, hey, I understand what's going on in the world, and if there's anything you can do to support, there's no harm in asking. And especially it's been really nice when you're looking at the field, how organizations, corporations, and people in general are just coming together to support one another. Yeah. So the need has definitely increased because of the current times, but I feel that demand and that want to support has also increased too. So there are funds specifically time sensitive, which has been really great. Deepika asks if there are any painting exhibitions where we sell paintings in Flushing Town Hall. Right now, unfortunately, our space is closed, so we haven't been able to do any exhibitions. We do an annual member show, so if you want to sign up to be a member of Flushing Town Hall for the visual arts, we open it up, and it's a big group show that happens every year. Unfortunately, right now, everything's kind of up in the air, so I can't answer that specifically right now, but there are opportunities that we do for our visual arts members. Um, One last, another one is, Jay, about the elevator pitch. Is it meant to be just as a general artist overview, or do you kind of tailor your pitch for a specific project? You're on mute, Jay.
Sorry, you're muted. It could be for whatever you want it to be. And I would say the more specific, the better. I mean, it'll be easier for you if you have specific details. If you have a specific project, then certainly do that. But it can be anything, and just practice. I mean, I'll give you some feedback, and you can, do whatever you want to do, and whatever you can do in 30 seconds that will help you.
And I think just pitches in general should just be clear, concise. Just know what you're trying to accomplish with it. If it's just, hey, I want support for my general art, that's what your elevator pitch is. If you have a project coming down the pipe, tailor that pitch specifically for that. And
and it could also be an intro pitch. It doesn't have to have the ask in it. If I think just to introduce yourself, I am an artist, I'm this kind of artist who does this kind of art, and I'm talking to you because of this reason. Like, if even that could be the beginning step that you need to take. So any of those parameters would work. I just want you to practice.
Absolutely. And so Hilda's asked how to find art collectors. I think, we kind of went over a lot of different people who are art collectors. They might not necessarily have a collection necessarily, but work your network. And, I have a background in commercial art. I worked in a commercial gallery for about 3 years before becoming an art administrator. And it's really all about working that network. That's the best way to kind of cultivate that following. And then social media has been a really good tool. And then especially locally, there are a lot of open studio programs that attract art lovers that may be interested in starting a collection. I would suggest, taking a look at your neighborhood. I know LIC, Long Island City does an arts open, Bushwick, Ridgewood, Gowanus, all these neighborhoods are really doing really large weekends where, over 100 different artists are coming, and it really attracts new art lovers and gives you that exposure for your, especially visual arts, to possibly get people to purchase your work.
And from what I understand, with art collectors, you really want, it's less about you finding them and more about them being able to find you. So it's about communicating and being, I think social media is really important. Instagram, I believe, is really important. And just like working your hashtags and then getting other influencers to follow you. Be findable.
Yeah, and we'll talk about social media down the road. And I guess that goes to our last question, Sylvan, about other topics related to art. We are planning, this is our second one that we've done so far of this series. This is actually thank you, Sylvan. This is a perfect transition to the final slide. Our next session is next month. It's going to be about bringing your art online. We'll be talking with our Director of Production, Steve Mecca. Honestly, the past 7 months, we've been bringing all our programs online. A lot of mostly performing arts, but there's been some tips and tricks that Steve's learned along the way, and little bumps that hopefully you guys can learn from.
Steve is here. He's here right now. He is seriously the wind beneath our wings. So
he's the only reason all this internet stuff is working.
Steve.
Amazing. So there's a lot you can learn from him as he's been learning to keep us going. So I think that will be a
yeah.
really good one.
So RSVPs are open for that. So visit visit our website, flushingtownhall.org. You'll see the drop down for professional development. Again, November 18th at 7 p.m. we'll be doing this again, and you'll be seeing Steve from in front of the camera this time around. And yeah, again, I want to thank Jessica and Jay for taking part. And one last, I guess, pitch for us is flushingtownhall.org/donate. Anything that you guys can help support us, it would be really great, and we would be so thankful for. Yeah.
Small gifts from artists mean more than big gifts from really, like, I mean, everything is awesome, but small gifts from smaller budgets really mean a lot.
So
because they tell a big story.
It lets us know that we're doing the right thing, and we wouldn't be doing what we're doing without you guys, without your support, and it's showing up. And so thank you again for tuning in, spending time with us.
Email us. You have any questions? We're here. We want to help.
Absolutely.
Here's our emails and everything. And yeah, hopefully we can see you down the road, maybe next month for the next presentation. And tomorrow I'll be sending you guys that resource list to help you on, like, give you a little bit of a head start for the research that you guys will need to do to find that fundraising. And also we'll be sending over like a little survey for feedback. So let us know what we've done great and what we've done, what we can work on. This is, we're trying to make this really a monthly program to give you guys the tools to really support your art practice. So thanks again. And yeah, please, if you guys have any questions, email us and give Jay a call for that elevator pitch exercise. So thanks again.
Thanks.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.